All right, we are here today for an interview with Don Muntz, and it's August the 6th, 2022. Where the interview is taking place in, is it Berdan?
Yes.
Berdan, Illinois, which is not too far from Greenfield, Illinois. And I guess I'd just like to start off. So Mr. Muntz served in Vietnam, and were you in, which branch of the military were you in?
Army.
You're in the Army, okay. So how did you actually get involved in getting into the Army?
I was drafted.
You were drafted?
It's in 67.
Okay. So when you, how did you feel about that when you got notified that you were getting pulled into the war?
Didn't like it.
Yeah.
Scared, but I had to do my part, so
Yeah.
I went no, I don't think anybody enjoyed it. You had a girlfriend at home and good job and everything, but when your time come, you went. Your buddies all went, and I done my part.
Yeah. So did you grow up in this area, in this part of the state?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, he grew up on a farm about a mile and a half down the road that I later ended up buying from my aunt and uncle.
Okay. So which high school did you go to?
Carrollton.
Carrollton, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you got in, when you were drafted and you left to go into basic training, roughly what part of the year of 67 was that? Was it early?
Let's see, September, I think it was.
September 12th.
September the 12th, yeah. I got drafted and had to go to, well, let's see, we went to somewhere, we went down to St. Louis first and got sworn into the Army, and then went to Fort Leonard Wood for my basic training. Mm-hmm. And I also took my AIT at Fort Leonard Wood also, which was pretty nice. I got to come home once or twice during that time.
Mm-hmm. So whenever you were when you were in your training there, were you being trained for any special role? Or were you just, was it infantry or was it?
No, I was in my AIT. I was going to be a combat engineer, and the combat engineers take in several things: building bridges, mine sweeping, clearing out mines, just different things that combat engineers are used for. There's a difference between just a regular engineer and a combat engineer. Mm-hmm. The combat engineer usually works, goes into with the infantry and stuff like that, and the funny part about it is, I took my AIT was in the winter months, and we bivouacked out in snow 6 inches deep, and like to froze to death, and built some bridges, and then we they made us go through mine sweeps, and then combat situations out there, and then the next step was to go to Vietnam. It didn't make sense because you're out here below zero weather and then turn around and go to 100 degree weather. There's a big difference in it.
Wow.
But then from there, I was sent to Vietnam. Let's see, I got over there right during Tet. Tet had just kind of started. I got over there, I think it was February the 6th of 68.
Okay.
And I went into Cameron Bay. That was kind of a story there again. I flew over. It took 13 hours, but they landed in Tokyo, Japan. And when we landed in Tokyo, Japan, there's about 200 of us on the plane. We're in our khakis, and there were 16 inches of snow on, and the wind chill was 20 below. It was colder than the devil. They wouldn't let the plane leave, so we had to spend the night in the main hangar there at Tokyo, Japan. And finally, they got us on the plane to leave, and of course it was just freezing the whole time. And then the next step was Cam Bay, Vietnam. And when they opened up them doors of those planes, you could just feel the heat coming back in there. And you just like from one extreme to the other. Then we had to go up from the plane and line up in lines, which there's some other planes coming in too. And they put us in different lines to get our orders where we had to go and stuff. And you had to stand out there for 2 or 3 hours. And I can remember this guy from New York. He was a little short guy. And we're in line, and it was just, the sun was beating down, and we're waiting there, we're thirsty, and the guy just turned around to me and he said, "Just shoot me now, because I'm not going to make it." Oh. I'll never forget that, but it was a different
I can't
situation.
Imagine, to know you just arrived, and it's already this miserable, and you've got your whole tour in front of you.
Yeah. Left the States in the wintertime, got in Japan, it was freezing cold, and then that extreme heat.
Maybe I don't know my geography of Japan real well, but that seems odd that they would have such rough
weather.
I
know. It was weird. It was really weird. I don't know whether it was just a weird thing or what, but that's what happened. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So whenever you were, so one question I had that I've heard from other Vietnam vets is that when you were sent over on like a civilian airplane, like a jet airplane,
right? Yeah, there's about 240 people.
Were you with the guys you trained with?
No, didn't know one on here.
And that was one thing that was a complaint for guys, is that they would have liked to have traveled over with the guys that they came to know that would be in their unit. So when you went over, did they give you good instructions on what to take with you, like what to pack? Because I have a guy I interviewed that said he didn't have any idea what he was supposed to even take.
No, I didn't know what to take. In fact, they told us not to take any type of weapon that would be taken away from you, because Dad was kind of wanting me to take a little 22 or something, Couldn't do that. No knives, no nothing. Whatever you was issued, that's what you was going to get, So had no idea. And when we was out in line there at Cam Bay, had no idea where I was going to go. Didn't know what was going on until we got up there, and I got lucky, I guess in one sense, by being the combat engineer, because there some of these guys are going for the infantry too, and different things, that was in line, that was on that plane. And I had to train with some guys that was actually coming back, was from their tour duty in Vietnam, that had been on the minesweep teams, and they had to train us, give us some training for a couple of weeks there. I forget the name of the LZ that we worked out of. It wasn't too far from Cam Bay. It was kind of north of Cam Bay, and we that's where I started learning how to go out on the minesweep in Vietnam. Now I'd done it here in the States in practice and stuff like that, and in training, but this was on the job training, let's put it this way. And it's a good thing I did, because those guys basically told you, forget a lot of the stuff you learned in the States and do it our way, and they were right, because a lot of the stuff they taught you over here, it was good, but yet it didn't really apply to some of the situations where we had up north, because there was, like the mine detectors, most of the time you had them turned off because they didn't do you any good. because they'd pick up a hairpin, and there were so many rifle shells and metal and shrapnel on the ground that they didn't do no good, you know. So it was more of the eyeball situation on finding the mines and stuff like that, booby traps. The enemy was, Viet Cong was experts on making booby traps and stuff like that.
So when you got into Cameron Bay there and you stepped off the plane,
Yeah.
you didn't know what unit you were in yet. Is that correct?
Well, I knew I was going to be a combat engineer, but I didn't know I was going to be on a minesweep team.
Okay.
Right off the bat.
So
That was the thing. I thought maybe I'd get lucky and be on one of them a bridge building outfit or something like that, you know. But that didn't happen.
So were you assigned to like a numbered unit? Like did you?
The 14th Combat Engineer Unit.
Okay.
Yeah, assigned to them, and then after we had our training and was there, the 14th was actually there doing, and there was I wasn't the only one, you know. There was several squads and stuff, platoons doing the same thing, and after they went through this 2-week deal, they loaded our battalion on with a merchant marine ship, which was it wasn't only just the 14th Combat Engineer, it was also had first cab and other infantry groups and tank units on it. It was a huge ship. It was just huge. It had tanks and it had 3 tiers to it. And they had trucks down in the bottom tiers and jeeps and tanks and you name it that goes with the Army.
Like an LST, like a big LST, like where they would have, like in World War II, for instance, they would have carried a lot of that cargo and those sorts of
I guess it was a merchant marine and basically it was had 3 compartments and then actually had 4 because on the top deck they did on the ends have tiers up here where they put different jeeps and trucks and stuff like that too. And I can remember we was on that 3 days and was going to Da Nang, from Cameron Bay to Da Nang. That's how I got there. And the only way you survived, you got on trucks and stuff and you ate what they call them, SP packs or whatever they were in Vietnam. And I remember getting with a couple other guys that I'd got to know, and we slept on top of a truck down on the bottom tier. They put we had to be down in the bottom, our unit, and we opened up the truck, and luckily it had all the good stuff, fruit and all that good stuff.
wow.
So we was kind of pecking through it, but we made a mistake. We was eating too much of it, and I'd never been on a ship like that before, and I didn't really, ocean kind of amazed me, and the first day wasn't bad, and the next day it was calm, and we kind of just did wouldn't go any place on the ship you wanted to, and just look at all of the different equipment and stuff that was on there, and like I said, we'd eat and then sleep down there with it. That second night, I think it was the second night, a big storm come up, and it tossed that ship around, and just waves was coming over the tops and everything else, and we're down in the bottom, and it was going like that, and I never got so sick in my life. And the air, just everybody was throwing up and stuff, and the air was getting pretty bad, and the only way you could get out was like a little silo. It was about this big around, and you had stair steps, and you had to climb up them and to get up on the top deck. And I got almost to the top, and I didn't think there was anybody behind me or anything, because there weren't when I left. And I almost got up to the top, and I couldn't hold it any longer. And I found out there was somebody below me, and they were mad. Of course, they was probably sick too, but they was mad. So I hurried up and got on top, and I went down, and luckily there's several rows of tanks down through there, and I went down, and the water was coming over the edge, and I got up underneath one of the tanks, and I spent the rest of the night underneath one of them because I was afraid somebody would throw me over. That's one of the funny experiences of my life there. But and then the next day after it was over, it kind of calmed down, and there was a mess on there. Everybody had been throwing up on the deck and everything. This guy that works on the deck, one of the deckhands, he was out there mopping up stuff, and I was getting ready to go back down there, and I kind of mentioned to him, I said, that was a heck of a storm we had last night. And he said, well, you ought to be on here when we have a storm. He didn't even think that was a bad storm.
Oh,
And
man.
I thought, man, I'd never be a sailor. So that was the end of it. And then we went into Da Nang, and as we was going into Da Nang, I seen this great big white ship. I've never seen one before with a big red cross on it. It was the sanctuary. It was a hospital ship. Never seen that before. And of course they had aircraft carriers out there, and they was flying off of them, and that was very interesting coming in. And I'm thinking, man, I wouldn't want to be one of them guys, And and the war was going on pretty bad. The Viet Cong had been in Da Nang, and they've been in Hue too, and it was still burning and smoking. But the first cab or not the first cab, the 101st Airborne and some Marine units had pretty well had it under control right there. But anyway, whenever we left there, they put us on a convoy, and man, that convoy didn't spend much time going through there. We had guns on the convoys, and everybody was on high alert because it was still pretty dangerous through there.
So, okay, so what were they worried about? What was the...
Well, the Viet Cong was still there. Still some of them in the city. There's snipers left back and stuff like that. But it was a mess. It was just every building that you seen had bullet holes, and it was blown up, and it was burnt. A lot of fighting that just a week before I got up there, Mm-hmm. And so anyway. The Viet Cong was trying to. There's a major on Route 1. There was a major bridge that the Marines, and I can't remember. I think it was 18th Battalion, but I'm not real sure about that now. Marine unit was on both sides of it. Was protecting it, and we had to give them support and do some minesweeping around there for about 5 days, I think it was. And so we set up there, and that's kind of where I seen my first action right in there. It got a little hairy of a night, and they was trying to blow up the bridge, and it's the first time I seen combat in firsthand,
So that bridge, was that up near the DMZ?
No, not quite. Da Nang's not quite up towards the DMZ. It's probably, I don't know how many miles, but it's probably, I'm guessing maybe 50 miles or from Hue. I don't know, something like that. But no, but that was a major bridge there. There was some mountains back in here, and the Viet Cong was coming in from the mountains, and they had us kind of down in a kind of it was kind of swampy out in this area here from that bridge to the river and stuff, and it was we thought it was kind of safe, but after the first night we dug in pretty deep, but they was throwing mortars in and they were just trying to blow up that bridge and sneak in of a night and set mines and stuff like that. So the Marines, early of a morning, they go out with helicopters, and this third morning was there, I guess it was. The mountains, you know how mountains are, they're farther away than they really are, but yet you can see them, and you got binoculars that you can see things, what's going on. And the Marines, there was 4 or 5 helicopters going out there, and they was getting ready to go on patrol out there, and all of a sudden they got shot on. And helicopters went. One helicopter went down, anyway, the others landed, let the Marines out, I guess, to support the guys that was in that helicopter. And all of a sudden, the other helicopters was coming in and shooting into that mountain range. And then they called in the Air Force, and they was throwing bombs and stuff. And we're watching all this and wasn't paying too much attention. We seen a bunch of water buffalo out here to the left of us, and we're watching this, and then the jets was coming in, and it's flying, shooting the bombs into the hillside there, and all of a sudden, they had a jet come in real low to the left of us, and he started dropping mini bombs, and water buffalo was flying up in the air and everything. We looked down, and the Viet Cong was hid behind them water buffalo in that swamp, that kind of swampy area, rice paddies and stuff coming in across there. And but anyway, it didn't last too long, and he took care of everything. But,
So your job was your job to go out and try to find these minefields and kind of dig up the mines? Is that
our job was to after I got from there, I went to through Way and on up to the DMZ zone, and we helped build a camp called Camp Evans. And then from Camp Evans, we'd go out on, at first we'd go out on mine sweeps. We'd be the first ones out early in the morning. And there'd be other teams from other platoons and stuff. They go one way, and we usually covered about 10 to 12 miles on an average a day.
Wow.
And then you'd have at first we had the 101st Airborne Infantry would go out with us for support. They send us out 30, 40 guys with us. They'd have 20 guys on each side, and then we'd clean that main route out, or if it was Route 1, or might be another route up there they'd send us on. You never know exactly. Most of the time they put you on them for 2 or 3 days and then put you on a different route, because I think that what they was thinking, you get used to that route and you wouldn't pay attention near as much, and then some mornings you'd have to go to the air pad they had up there and get on a helicopter, and they fly you out, and then you take an effort route and run your mine sweeps. Now that was out of your base camps. Now when you went to the boonies, what we call the boonies, that's a different story. You're kind of a more jungle area. You're looking for more booby traps in the in thick jungle and stuff like that. But on the base camps, you'd go out early in the morning, come back in, and they'd give you an hour or two to rest because you was pretty tired. But they'd always keep you busy. If a bunker needed worked on or whatever, you'd have to go work on that bunker, and we'd get rocks pretty much not every day, but you get a few rockets 3 or 4 times a week anyway, and then one night we got in I think it was June, the end of June, last part of June, we got hit real hard with some rockets, and they hit our ammo dump, and it started at about 7:30 that night, and it lasted all night long, and they just destroyed the whole camp. It was pretty hairy that night. We all pretty much thought we was going to die, but it was just, at one time I can remember looking up, and now you remember there's no lights, and there was so much stuff flying, it just looked like a bunch of bees just flying in the sky. It's just so many bullets and shrapnel and stuff. I couldn't believe it.
Now, was this Camp Evans you were at?
Right.
At this
Yeah.
point still? Wow.
Yeah. And at that particular time, the first cab had moved up in there and took over Camp Evans. The 101st was there first, and then they moved on up to try the Tri-Cree. Let's see, what is it? wanted to say Tri Creek, but that ain't right. Providence. And then the first cab moved into where we was at, and there was a lot of helicopters and stuff. And a lot of them got destroyed too. But see, I forgot my train of thought now. What I was getting ready to say. But,
It wasn't Quang Tri.
oh, Quan Tri, yeah,
Okay.
Quan Tri, yeah,
I
Quan
had
Tri.
an uncle that served in
Quan
Vietnam
Tri.
in the
Yeah.
Marines, and he was killed in Quang Tri province.
Oh yeah, Quan Tri Province. Yeah, it's not wasn't too far from Camp Evans. You know,
Okay.
it's a little farther to the north, to the be northeast. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we were probably wasn't too far. If you drove, probably only about 20 minutes with a truck to what they call Khe Sanh. It was a Marine camp over by Laos. Over there, they had some trouble and stuff, and that's kind of how I got hurt. Is later on they had this mission that go up there and clean out where the enemy had just dug in. It was, I don't know exactly where it was at because they flew us in, and I don't know if we was in North Vietnam or in Laos or where we was at for sure.
But is it the Khe Sanh area, roughly?
No,
is this near Khe Sanh?
no, I've been in the Quan Tri province. It'd been
Okay.
up towards the DMZ. That was all the
Yeah.
Quan Tri province.
Did you ever go to Con Tien, which was the base up there that had a lot of Marines that were firing all the time on the DMZ?
I don't think I was ever quite right on that base there. That'd been right on the DMZ, right?
Not far from it, just a
Yeah.
few miles from
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
We went up several pretty close. Now I was up on a base or two up in there, but I'm not sure I was on which base it was at. A lot of times when we was at helicopters would just drop us off, and we do our sweep and get on another helicopter and come back, and didn't really know where it was at
Were you on
sometimes.
Chinooks most of the time, or were you in Hueys? The
Hueys,
Hueys,
yeah. The Chinooks, I was on them, but they're awful rough riding, you know. But yeah, Hueys most of the time. But
So when you were saying that when you got hurt, you were up in that area, you weren't sure if you were in Laos?
well, I'm not sure where we was at for sure. I just know that when we flew in there, it was an awful long ride, and it shouldn't have been that long ride on a helicopter, you know. When they dropped us in there, and was with the first cab unit, first of the seventh, I think it was, and there's some other units, and the operation I think was called Operation Plowdown, if I'm not mistaken. And they was pushing the enemy out of these strongholds, which they had tunnels and they had bunkers, and they'd been there a while, you know, and they had it all booby trapped, and there was old mines in there that they knew where it was at, and I think they was resetting some of their booby traps when they left, you know, left some snipers back. We called them suicide guys because they didn't have much of a chance, you know, but if they got it or they got caught, but you can see where they buried a lot of their dead and stuff too, and the B-52s that bombed the area. There's just holes everywhere where they had bombed that area and stuff, and but they survived it. And
that always amazes me that they can survive this carpet bombing from our B-52s.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if they were would they go underground to survive it? And how would that?
Oh yeah, they'd be deep in the ground in some places, but most of the time in this one area they built a lot of mounds, and what they did, they went in there and took bamboo, and they crossed it over and laced it with the straps of the grass and bamboo and stuff, and made it real tight, and they'd make an L in there like this, you know, and then they'd cover that all up in there, and then they'd brush it, and then that stuff would grow up in there, and it was amazing the amount of digging they did. I mean, it was just like they just dug tunnels everywhere. It's just unbelievable the amount of digging they could do, you know. But and in this particular area, we found arms places where they stacked arms, and their equipment had been brought down and was stored in there, and we'd have to blow. Most of the time, we blew it up. Sometimes they depend on the area, but in the last part where I got hurt on this mission, they blew most of that stuff up and everything. But a lot of booby traps. Guys was getting hurt, and a lot of guys was a lot of infantry guys was getting blown up, and you couldn't find them all. It was just a mess. They had it prepared. It was just regular minefields that they knew where it was at, and we was just having to clean them out. Myself, I would have left it. but they wanted them cleaned out and stuff. You know, it looks to me like it'd been better off just drove them out of there and forget about it. And,
were you involved? Did you have to go in and clean out some of that stuff?
Oh yeah, we blew up a lot of stuff in there.
So how would you go about? Like, I can't imagine where you would even start as someone going in trying to clear out.
First thing, you go in scared.
Yeah.
You know, you're ordering, and you got your other guys you got to look for, and everybody's looking out for each other, and you go in scared, and you just eyeball stuff, and if something wasn't right, it didn't look right, you went slow, and you blew it up. You know, if the situation, there was some situations you had to mark things. You know, you couldn't blow it up at the time, but you just marked it to where the infantry or whatever could get through and go from there. But yeah, it wasn't fun. But you got used to it. You got so you just I don't know. You got good at it, really. Just eyeballing stuff. You could just tell if a weed was out of place or something. You better check it out, you know. But that was the trouble. You missed a lot too, and guys got killed, and a lot of guys got blowed up and stuff. But
what were the most common types of booby traps that you
usually get? Grenades in cans. That was one of their big thing, or on a fork of a bamboo tree or tree or something like that. But most of the time that, and then of course up there they had a lot of Chinese mines and stuff like that the Chinese, they got off through the Chinese or Russian made mines and stuff like that, and you blow a lot of that stuff up. And they could booby trap some of our stuff. We had to blow up our stuff. A lot of those bombs and stuff that we dropped, they didn't go off, and you would have to blow them up. And a lot of times when I come in from a mine sweep from my back at the base camp, I'd get called back out to a infantry unit that I didn't even know where they was at, and it was my turn to go out, or we got in and I was the demo man there, and they say, Muntz, go out get on a certain helicopter or whatever and go out with them, and they tell you what to do, and you go out there and you fly into an LZ most of the time, which is they just went out there and dug a bunch of foxholes around, or if they was lucky to have a bulldozer or something pushed up the dirt, made a mound around, that was their protection. And you'd land out there, and you'd get in touch with the company or the main commander out there, and they tell you what they want. Most of the time, they'd want you to blow up some Chinese claymores that they found that was in their way, or a lot of times they'd find some bombs that hadn't been blown up or artillery shells that hadn't gone off, and you'd have to go out there and blow them up and stuff like that. for the guys, because if you didn't, they'd make a booby trap out of it, you know, if they left the area. And you was talking about earlier if I'd ever seen any of the guys that I went in training with. I only seen one guy the whole time in Vietnam, and both basic training and AIT training. And this was the guy that was in basic training with me at Fort Leonard Wood, and we was in the same squad. And there was 8 guys to a bedroom down there in Fort Leonard Wood, and he was one of the guys. And I got called out on to an LZ to blow up a bomb that they'd found out there. And at this LZ, there was an artillery unit inside the LZ. And when the chopper come in and landed not too far from this artillery unit, and I got off, and this guy recognized me getting off. I'm the only guy getting off the helicopter, and I was heading over to meet somebody to find out where the commander was, and this guy yells at me, and it was one of these guys that was in basic training with me, and he got put in artillery. Well, I couldn't talk right there too much to him. I said, I got to hurry up and find out what they want me and get with the commander. I said, no, I got to stay out here tonight because it was getting kind of late. I'll talk to you in the morning. And before the chopper comes in and gets me. So anyway, I go over and talk to the commander, and they had a bomb out there, and I went out there and blew it up. Come back in, and by that time it was getting dark, and they told me where to stay and dig where I could dig my foxhole and stay and get on the line in case we got overrun or something. But anyway, we got some rockets in that night, and early morning, it was getting close to early morning when they come in, and it didn't hit very close to where I was at, but it was hitting pretty close over where the artillery people were. And didn't think too much of it, you know, and anyway, ate, got up and ate what breakfast we ate, and I was talked to the commander, and he called in a helicopter to get me out of there, and so I told him, I said I had a friend over there I want to talk to over there, and he said, well, they got hit kind of hard over there, but go ahead. So I went over there and talking to his buddies, and the guy that I was just talking to got hit that night or that morning, and they said he got hit across the eyes, and they wasn't sure he's going to be able to see again. And what's your odds of something like that happening? You know, it was so weird and everything, but it happens. You know.
Did you ever find out?
I never found out nothing. You know, of course, I got hurt not too far after that. You know, but. Yeah, I had to leave, and I never found out. I don't know to this day, you know, whatever happened to him. His first name was Leonard. I remember that, but I don't know what his last name was.
Can you tell me about what happened with you when you got injured?
Well, basically, we was out in the boonies, and we was up there in an area. I'm not real positive. We was getting awful close to the DMZ zone, if not on it or on the other side of it, and was with the first cab, and they was pushing the enemy out of that area, and like I say, there was tunnels and all kinds of bunkers and mines and booby traps and everything else, and we was blowing them, and of course everybody's getting tired and everything, and I was going to go on R&R in 5 days, was it? I think it was 5 days. And meet at the time was my.
It would have been the middle of August, so about 2 weeks.
About 2 weeks, yeah. Yeah, and I had 2 weeks, I guess, to go to the R&R, and I was wanting to get this over with, you know, so I get out of there. And but there's a lot of infantry guys and a lot of our guys in our guys. Just one of my better buddies got killed a few days before that, and another one got hurt pretty bad. And it's pretty nerve-wracking. And anyway, it was that morning, and I just blew up a arms cache that the infantry had found on a unit. It's kind of a mess. They'd left snipers back, and everybody was on edge, and so anyway, we blew up this arm. I blew up this arms cache, and we'd went on this trail up a hill several times, and that they told us they wanted us all up in there, and we cleaned that hill out. But then when they found this arms cache, they needed a demo man, and when the infantry called in to find out whether they wanted to keep it or not, they said blow it. Well, I had to go down with the infantry guys. Spiegel was my helper. Went down there with them, and we blew it. Of course, you had to get away, and it was right next to a river. The river over there wasn't very big, and it blew a big hole in the river or whatever, and it made a heck of a hole. And we was kind of looking at stuff like that. We got called back up the hill real quick. They spotted something on the other side back in there, which they wanted everybody back up in there, up on top of that hill. We was going back up there, and all of a sudden, and I was the last guy. Spiegel was ahead of me, and there was 2 or 3 infantry guys, or I don't know for sure how many, maybe 5 guys ahead of us, going right up that hill, and all of a sudden it just, out of nowhere, we don't know what happened. Well, I heard some shooting. Right after that, it was just, I can remember, it felt like I was floating through the sky. It just felt like stars black, and I was just floating through the sky in this real bright light. I'll never forget it. It's real bright light. And next thing I know, I'm on the ground and laying on the ground, and I really wasn't in pain. I guess it was stunned pain, but I was so thirsty I couldn't stand it. And I could hear somebody moaning, and I figured it was Spiegel. I didn't know for sure who it was, but I could hear somebody moaning, and that's all I could hear. And then all of a sudden I hear pop, 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 and some gunshots, and then all of a sudden pretty soon I hear somebody yelling medic, and I was trying to be quiet because I knew up in that area, if we was ambushed, they didn't take prisoners there, and I didn't have no choice because I couldn't move nothing, I couldn't do nothing. The only thing I could think about was so thirsty I couldn't stand it, and my mouth just felt like cotton balls. And the next thing I knew, there's an infantry guy standing over me, and he said, "You're going to be all right." And I said, "I'm so thirsty I can't stand it." And he said, "You can't have water." I said, "I'm so thirsty I can't stand it." So somebody, I don't know, somebody took a sock off or what, and dumped the water in it, and they stuck it in my mouth, and that tasted so good. It just like drinking the canteen, but there wasn't no water in it, but man, it tasted good. And then the last I knew, this guy said, don't die on me, and then I must have passed out, and then I don't remember anything. I don't know how they even got the helicopters in there or nothing, But Spiegel, he said he was hurt real bad. He got hit real bad in the back. And he said he kind of woke up on the helicopter, and he said he didn't even see me. He said they must have had me underneath because they put us underneath where the wheels was at times in there. And he said they had 2 prisoners, and there was another guy guarding them, and there were some other guys they put on there that was wounded, but he couldn't see me. And he said he was just kind of hurting and coming in and out of it. And he said they flew us into a MASH unit, and they put him on a table in there, and they set me down on the ground in there. And he said he seen me. He said he was on the table looking at me, and he thought I was dead. And they're working on him, and I guess he said it was a mess in there. There's other guys hurt and stuff. They was running around there, and they was bringing them in right and left. And he said I just started talking down there, and I don't remember that. And then they started working on me, and I kind of couldn't come true once in there, because I can remember telling a guy, a medic, he said, "Can you feel this?" And I said, "Yeah, I can feel it. Don't cut my legs off." I didn't realize one of them was already blown off, and the other one was, I guess, was bent back because both bones was busted, and it was a mess. And I was hit up in here, and I was hit all over, and I couldn't see. I was blind, and then they must have given me some more morphine or something. I was out. I don't know what happened there. Next thing I remember being on the ship, the Sanctuary. And the only reason I know that later on, when I first woke up, I was tearing my bandages off. And I guess it was the morphine doing it. And I remember them holding me down, and their faces looked just like Viet Cong. I swear they looked like Viet Cong, and I thought they had me tied down, and I'm tearing my bandages off, and they're holding me down, calming me, saying, "Calm down, you're okay," and all this, and I guess they gave me some more morphine or something, and I went out again, and then when I didn't come back through again the second time, they had me kind of strapped down, and then one of the nurses told me I was on the ship, the Sanctuary. And then from there, I was in and out there. I don't know what went on there. They probably done some operations on it. And I woke up in the Philippines, and I'm laying there, and I'm pretty high, because I'd never been on morphine or anything like that before. Sure. And I'm going in and out. I'm just kind of laying there, and of course, I was blind, couldn't see nothing. And I could hear, back then they had the cameras with the flashes on them and stuff, and I could hear flashes going on, and I could hear people talking. And this woman, she sounded like she's right over my face. And the head bandages on me and everything, but my forehead was kind of clear. And I guess I was in traction and everything like this. And she says, "Can I kiss you?" And I'm thinking, I'm dreaming here, And I said, "Well, why not?" And she reached down and put a kiss me around my forehead, and then she kind of patted my arm. And she kind of walked away, and I hear a bunch of flashing, and all of a sudden this medic, he was a male corpsman, medic, he came up there and he said, "Do you know who that was?" And I said, "No." I said, "Get out of here, I'm having a dream." And he said, "No, you're not having a dream." He said, "That was Miss America."
Whoa.
And I said, "Yeah, right." He says, "Yeah, she left you a picture, you got an autograph here and everything." So the next day, I'm feeling a little bit better. I'm out of it a little better. They were giving me a bath, and they kind of sponge bath in between the things. He comes in there, and they had another nurse or two in there, and they're all teasing me. They bathe and rather than, "We're going to leave this here for a while, You're the only one around here got a kiss, I said, "Well, I didn't know it, So, but anyway, that was different. Then I woke up in Japan. I don't really remember leaving that place in the Philippines, and I woke up in Japan, and a Japanese doctor was. When I was coming through, he says, "Can you see light?" And I could see light, and that was the first time I could see light, and it kind of tickled me to death a little bit, but I couldn't see out of my right eye. And then I was there for a while, but I don't know how long because I was in and out with morphine and had surgeries and stuff. And next thing I know, I was in an Air Force base in the United States. What's the name of that? Can't think of the name of the Air Force base now. And then from there, they sent me to Valley Forge General Hospital, and I was there about 5 months there. So,
Wow.
Yeah, and then I had to come back to John Cochran for a couple of months. I had got an infection out there, and I had to have specialists come in and rebuild my ear.
Ah.
Yeah, I had this arm was in traction. I got hit here, got hit all up in here, and this leg they wanted to cut it off. I had several doctors wanted to go ahead and amputate it, and I wouldn't let them because I kept feeling. I thought I could feel my toes, and of course back then they stretch you and stretch the skin over your stump, and you're all in traction. It was miserable not being able to see, and all you could do is hear. And then this Dr. Debs, he come in. He was so, hey doctor, and they didn't give him a choke for my right leg, and he looked at my arm and stuff, and he said, "Well, we'll do the best we can, but can't guarantee anything." And it was a long surgery. They worked both up my arm and my leg. He saved them.
Wow.
Yeah,
Thank God.
yeah. But yeah, I'm getting a little emotional. I shouldn't.
I would too.
But anyway, have you got a Kleenex source?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a box over there somewhere.
I may have to cut some of this out.
Oh, that's up to you. I mean, so obviously, at that point you're back in the States. Is
Yeah.
5 months that you said you were at the hospital and everything. That's when they did the surgery.
I had a lot of surgeries. I had eye surgeries. I had arm surgeries. At times they'd work on my eye, or I had to have an eye surgery. They'd be working on my leg at the same time.
Gosh.
Yeah, I had a piece of shrapnel went up in here, and boy, that gave me a lot of trouble for a long time. Cut some tendons up in here,
Oh man.
and I never had any trouble in this arm or this ear or anything, but it blew this ear out, and while I was out there, it was getting worse in there. I was getting infection, and so they gave me a choice. One of the better surgeons to do the surgery was down in St. Louis, so I was getting so I could get up on my leg, or they made me a pylon, and then finally made me a leg to get around on, and so they sent me to St. Louis to have this surgery, and I spent the rest of my time down here at St. Louis, which made it nice for the family and everything, So, so, but that ear surgery wasn't fun. It was long surgery, and it just felt like somebody hit me with a ball-peen hammer, and they went in there, cut this whole ear out, and rebuilt that eardrum. And it worked for a while, but now I've lost the hearing in it too. And I lost the nerve in this eye in numb, and never could see in it. But I finally got so I could see in this eye here with thick glasses for years, and done all this. I've rebuilt, redone this kitchen, and
Wow.
I do a lot of carpenter work over the years. It just kind of come natural with me. And built a rabbitry. I started out with a 2-story house in front of the rabbitry, and I knew I couldn't raise hogs like I used to. I didn't think, and I got interested in rabbits out in Valley Forge General Hospital. People would come in; they were really nice out there, and a lot of volunteer people. And this Red Cross lady's husband raised rabbits out there, and I got talking to her one day, and I'd set off for some different things, and she'd seen this one pamphlet there that I had on rabbits, and she said, "Well, my husband raised rabbits," and I guess, she said, "You ought to come out and see this our setup." And when I got to where I could get around, they took me out there, and I was really impressed. And he raised them for research out there, so I thought, well, I don't know, I didn't know too much about the market out here or anything, so I come out here, and so I ordered a few rabbits and started raising them in that 2-story house. I found out that there was some markets around that if I got big enough, and so I just had to start slow, and it was kind of rough at first, and so I built the back part of the rabbitry. And then I tore down the front part of that. If you see that big building out there, then I tore down the front of that 2-story building and built the front part. And I kind of worked my way up. I had to go through wholesalers at first, and then I worked my way up to and got into the directly to the research people, and it happened over. It took time, but I was in it for 26 years and done pretty good with it. And I learned how to take advantage of the rabbits, the rabbit manure. I raised redworms under it. I found out that was kind of a gold mine underneath that. And
Really?
I took the rabbit manure. I raised worms underneath the rabbit manure, or the rabbits, and then. Water was going to be a problem, but here in Berdan we're pretty fortunate. We didn't have city water or anything back then. You could dig anywhere and get a deep well around. So I bought this property over here, and it had a deep well on it. So I connected my 2 deep wells, and plus I had a shallow well here too that was really good. And I'd flood those rabbit pits, and those worms would come up in there by them just like spaghetti, and you go in there and collect them and put them under bright lights. So I'd have tables and put them under bright lights, and then as the kids was in high school, them and my wife, they'd sort through the worms, and they'd be a big bundle, and we'd weigh them out, and I worked out a market up with a guy that worked up at well, he's outside of Rushville, and he'd go all the way down to Missouri and pick up minnows, and he'd drop redworms off to all those lakes down in there for crappie fishing and stuff like that. And then he'd go
that's what you used the worms for, was for fishing. Obviously.
And then he'd go all the way up to Canada and pick up night crawlers, and he had a regular deal set up, Well, I'd buy night crawlers also, too, and then I had some bait deal or places that I was selling around here. I make my routes too, And now it wasn't the only thing. Worms was also used to feed different types of birds and stuff to pet stores and stuff like that. A lot of people didn't know that. And of course, I didn't tell them either. And I had another guy I got in contact with way down in Arkansas, and he come up here once a week, go all the way up Chicago, and come back, and he'd stop and he'd buy my if I'd lose some rabbits or baby rabbits, or we was also raising guinea pigs. I also got into that. We'd raise them by the thousands, and you'd have a certain amount that would die on you, or you'd have to. They weren't good enough to sell. I'd just get rid of them, and he'd buy them dead. I put them in the freezer, and they'd use them for snake food stuff. And
oh, really?
They'd also buy worms for the pet shops to feed different birds and stuff like that, animals and stuff. So anyway, I worked up pretty good business doing that. That lasted for 26 years, and then the computers come along, and then Humane Society got a little more stricter with the USDA, and so I had a chance to sell out. And then, meanwhile, I bought the farm place out here, and then I raised a few hogs too. So I could raise hogs, and I had some sheep and stuff like that too. I was pretty active, and got along pretty good. And then after that, I seen the rabbits was going to go. It was getting to the point you better get out of it. So I sold out at a good time, and then I converted my cages over to raising bobwhite quail to sell, and that was when the hunting started picking up. And I got in with some hunting preserves, and I couldn't raise enough of them. I was raising them, just sell them fast as I could raise them, and I had flight pens out at the farm and stuff. But I started getting sick. Here I raised rabbits for 26 years, never got sick at all. I started raising these quail and started getting sick with it. And
Getting sick from
yeah, the bird disease.
Really?
It was starting to get me, and they told me I better get out of it, or it was going to kill me. So, best thing to do is just get out of it. You know?
Yeah.
So I retired, and then I farmed a little bit more. I took on a little bit more renting ground out there and farmed for a while and stuff. But my eyesight was always good, and then it started going bad there for a little while with those thick glasses, and then I had a cornea transplant, and it worked for 4 years, real good, no problem whatsoever. I didn't even have to wear glasses. Then it went bad and had another one, and it lasted, yeah, about like that. But this time it was the outside of the cornea that's what going bad, and they don't give me a lot of hope on it. So this last year's been kind of depressing.
Yeah.
Yeah. The eyesight thing's one of the most depressing thing. Now, I know when I was out in Philadelphia, there was thousands of guys coming in and out there that had arms, legs off, paralyzed from the neck down, and both arms, both legs off, and that's what made me feel better, seeing them guys, you know. I didn't have nothing wrong with me compared to some of them guys, but
Yeah. No,
yeah, the hospital was, Vietnam was bad, but the hospital was bad too. Anybody that had had a leg off has had to spend a lot of time in a hospital. Now I don't know what the ones they got today is, but out there it was an old hospital, and it was kind of rough. It wasn't so. It was, the people was good. It was rough because you had to see what the guys coming in, it was going through, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of lives was ruined because, you know, it was a bad war.
When you were in the hospital recovering, were you able to befriend any of the other guys coming in and kind of help them? Like, were you
Oh
able to
yeah,
be,
it was part of your job. It was part of your therapy. Go up and hold cigarettes for the guys that didn't have no arms and legs off, and but that was not good because they didn't want to live, and
yeah.
not a lot you could say to them, and just, you know, and what could you say, and they just didn't want to live, and some of the guys that. I had a guy right next to me tried to commit suicide. All he had was a leg off. He didn't have nothing else wrong with him. And his leg, it wasn't that bad, but he got a Dear John letter, and he just couldn't take it, you know. And then a sergeant this guy was from an infantry group. He's a colored African American, and nice guy. He just couldn't take it, and he tried to kill himself one night, and then they had to move him to a different ward, and then right across from me, the sergeant from he was a staff sergeant. He'd been in the service for several years, but he was on a what they call them? I can't think of the name of them, where they had tracks on them and went with the tank units.
Yeah.
And they hit a mine and it blew his arm and his leg off. And his family come in and seen him. His wife come there, but I guess she left him. And he tried to commit suicide over there too. And but most of the time, the other guys, there'd be see, how was that? There was 8 guys. You had 4 guys in a section here and 4 over here, and there was 24 to a row. And of course, when they come in, they'd be hurting and their operation. You couldn't sleep half the time because all that was between you was just kind of a thin, most time just a curtain, you know. And and you just had to learn how to sleep whenever you could sleep, and you had some bad nights, put it this way. And sometimes it wasn't because of your pain; it was because you knew what they was going through, you know, and stuff. And and then made a lot of friends, different people, met a lot of guys, and the thing about it is, I played checkers with the general. He got hurt. And he said it wasn't. He said he wouldn't have got hurt, but he wanted to see what his men was doing. He was in a helicopter and he wanted to fly down and see what his men was doing. And I guess a sniper shot him. The bullet went through the helicopter and hit him right in the foot. He lost his foot, and he found out. I used to play checkers in high school, and I got pretty good at it. He found out that I was a pretty good checker player, and he liked to play checkers. And he had a private room, and he'd have me come in there and play checkers with him. And I got out a lot of little, because they'd make you do different chores and stuff. I got a lot of chores. Go play checkers with the general, you know. But it's.
Well, I mean, looking back on your whole experience, obviously you've gone through more than most people, you know, with it. What was there anything out of that war and out of your experience that was a positive for you?
I don't think I made it through it. Wouldn't been for the family, you know. My wife
I think you made it stronger.
made me stronger, I guess. You know.
And he got you. Yeah, prize.
I just don't think the Vietnam War should. At the time, I thought it was necessary because of the people. I felt sorry for those people that was suffering up there. There just wasn't Americans suffering. It was a lot of South Vietnamese. I mean, we missed mines on the main routes that South Vietnamese ran over. One of the worst was there was 24 people in one car. Over there they had like an old coupe cars, and they just piled them cars up there, and I guess didn't have enough money, and they get where they got to get, and it had been raining that day. It was during the monsoons, and it had been raining, and that was a bad time you go out on the mine suites. There's so many holes in the road, and it was dirt, and then Viet Cong would put those mines in them roads during that time. You'd almost bet you find a lot of mines during the rain or after rain. And this car went around our mine sweep team. I mean, he swerved around and went between the infantry and us, and I don't know what the deal was, whether he was high or what. And if he just waited a few more, another 50 foot or so, when he come back in, he hit a mine, and we felt the pressure from it. And 24 people was in there, and there was only 4 of them dead. You can imagine what the rest of it was like. And we had to clean them out. They had to call in helicopters, and it was just a mess. And little kids' arms off, Yeah, it was a mess. I mean,
Gosh.
and there was no reason for it. If he would just had patience, I don't know why he went around us at all, and you couldn't shoot at him because it was full of kids and everything else, to stop them. But he did it. I don't know why. But that wasn't the only situation. There were some others that we missed some mines, and we really felt bad about it, and nothing you could do about it.
So if you didn't use a metal detector, how did you find them and disarm them? I mean,
Most time on the route, you blow them up if he's on the main route. Most of the time, Now if he's in a village, you carried them out and blowed them out. It's scary. But most of the time they wouldn't have mines right in the village. They might the kids sometimes the kids would which it was a bad habit, but a lot of times them kids would come out there if he was going through a village and they was used to you going to the village. They come running out there and they want your cigarettes and stuff, Now I never smoked, so I kept the cigarettes I got in my packs, and I'd give it to the little kids because I felt sorry for them. They were little bitty kids, they'd smoke, and they would rather have cigarettes before they would candy, but I give them a lot of candy and stuff. We give it to them, and they tell us where Viet Cong put mine over there, Well, a lot of times they just stick a a Coke can out there and make it look like, and stick a stick out of it. Well, they did it, But you had to make sure you had to go up there and act like it because you didn't know for sure. But and then a lot of times they tell us where they saw them put the mine out, and if it was close to the village or something, So I didn't worry too much about going through villages. But outside the villages, especially on rainy days, you just check the mine water hose, and they had a habit of running water buffalo over the Route 1 there in certain areas, and water buffalo would leave a lot of droplets and stuff, and they like to stick their little mines and stuff in those water buffalo bundles and stuff like that. So you had to check all that and stuff, but you just got used to it, But you did miss a few. I mean, we missed some. It was just part of the war. You just missed them, but because the mine detector, you can't believe. There's so many rifle bullets and shrapnel. It's just you could just see it all up and down there. Where guys go, ahead of us, there before us, had shot and stuff. But it was just all over, and the mine detectors really didn't do too much good. We had to carry them or take them with us, and we did use them if we found something that was really suspicious or it was a fresh. We call them cow or something different. I can't say it on camera, but the water buffalo bundles, you could use them on them pretty good and stuff like that. But a lot of times there wasn't too much. If it was a metal mine from Russia or something, you can pick them up pretty good. But it was those Chinese mines and stuff made out of plastic, they was kind of hard to find,
Yeah. Well. I mean, obviously, it's been a tough road for you, with everything since the war. Is there anything that you want to say on the interview and the camera for anyone who might watch this, and like any future generations that that might come across this video or watch it? Any advice?
Well, war's not gun ho. I don't know. There's some guys think it is, but it's not. And there's a lot of pain in it, and a lot of death, and a lot of suffering, And anytime it can be avoided, it should be, but I don't know. It's just some leaders that gets us pulled into different situations that shouldn't. You wouldn't think nowadays it would happen, but it does, you know. So I don't know if I don't think there's any end to it, and I don't know. There's just so much sadness in the world. I just, and I know the suffering. I mean, you just don't get hurt. It's a lifetime of pain. Let's put it this way. Yeah. I've had a stroke. I had that in 2015, and I sting, and my arm draws, and everything from it, and I probably wouldn't have had it. It wouldn't have been hurt, I'd had my eyesight today. It wouldn't, and I miss my eyesight. I really do. I think I dropped something. But
yeah. Oh, I'll get it. I'll get
Sure.
it. Done.
I think it's just an ice pack.
I'm not put this on camera, but I think he would say, he probably didn't think about it, but I think he would say that he's been more determined, despite his disabilities, to be able to do what he's done, to make something of himself. And the second thing is he's been more aware of like his surroundings and stuff. I think more so by being in Vietnam, what he's went through, because he's even taught me that
Yeah.
be really aware where you're at all times. So those two things I think is really important. What he's learned from that on the
I'm
process.
probably a little bit more cautious than
Yeah.
most people. If I see something that ain't right, I check it out, and I'm very protective on that in that sense. Of course, now I can't see, but we'd go places. I was probably a little bit more protective than I could just. Than I probably should have been, at times, but it didn't hurt to check things out,
No, for sure. Yeah.
But I saved two guys' lives that I know for sure, just out saving. One was we was on a mine sweep, and when we went through, we was going through a village, and was on the outside of it. And there was an orange crate sitting outside of a grass hutch. Up there were mainly grass hutches up there. They dirt floors, and nothing like it was down south. And this fancy machete was stuck in it. And this, apparently, I didn't know it at the time, but this was with the 101st Airborne unit. They was supporting us. They was our support unit that day, and this guy hadn't been out there too long with them, and he's kind of green. Anyway, we're going through, and they're going to the hutches on the outside there, checking them out, and we're going right down through the main area where the trucks, main road down through there. Of course, there's hutches on both sides, so we had to be careful too. And I just kind of eyeballed that darn orange crate over there, and I seen that guy walk over there, and he's kind of looking in the villages, and of course there's kids running around there, and you don't know who the enemy is or anything. And he's just started to reach down there, and that just kind of clocked him, and I yelled at him. I just screamed at him, "Don't touch that!" And he stopped. And about that time, some of the guys that was with him seen what was happening, and they told him to get back. And so I went over there, and it was a good thing because they had a grenade in that orange crate rigged up on a booby trap. Yeah, but that was kind of a fancy machete, and he just I think he kind of wanted it for a souvenir, And he thanked me, and he kind of got chewed out by his head officer because he should have known better to do that. But there again, he was green, and he just wasn't thinking.
Yeah.
The other one was a Viet Cong. Believe it or not, I'm the only guy probably in Vietnam says a Viet Cong's alive. No, in a sandy area. This is a different, not when I got hurt or anything. We was in a sandy area. We had to throw grenades in these. They had bunkers built up out there, and the way they fix in bunkers, they'd have that bamboo and they'd be in a tunnel like this, and then. But anyway, we was out in this sand, kind of a sandy area, and it was kind of swampy in some places. But they had a bulldozer out there, and we was throwing grenades in there, checking them out for mines, and then the bulldozer would come in there and dig them up. Well, threw the grenade in there, looked around, didn't see no mines, motioned for the bulldozer to come in, and I'd looked in there on both sides, and I couldn't see nothing in there. You have a little flashlight that you could look in there. And bulldozer operator come in there and he dug that up. And all of a sudden I look and I see 2 feet. Hey, they're just doing this, like this. And I waved at him and I told him to stop. And I wasn't even thinking real good. And I went up there and I just grabbed him and pulled him out. Well, Spiegel starts yelling, he's got a frag. Well, frag means it's a grenade. Well, he didn't have. So I pulled him on out. He was just a young Viet Cong that probably didn't even want to be there, but he was hiding up in there, but I had to turn him over, so I don't know whatever happened to him or anything like that. But he's going like this to me, I couldn't speak. I got so I could do. It was a thank you thing, yeah. But yeah, he was a young kid. He probably didn't. He might have got left behind. He might have been a sniper left back. I don't know, but I had to turn him over to the interpreters and stuff. But so I don't know whatever happened to him.
Oh wow!
I got harassed by the guys though for doing it, but oh well. I'm probably not the only one.
Well, I don't have any further questions. Is there anything else you haven't talked about that you wanna discuss or anything?
I can't think of anything. I just probably talk too much.
No. This has been great.
But it does him good though to talk though. He's done that ever since he's got hurt.
Yeah.
From the very beginning, come home when he come home, first thing he went to watch on TV was a war movie. It's like.
Well, since this is going to the Congress.
Yeah.
Well, when I was in the hospital out there, no congressman during that Vietnam War had ever visited Valley Forge General Hospital. Not one that I know of, or I was told. And so thanks to some of the people, my parents and some of the people around here, they got on to Paul Finley after I got hurt. And he was the congressman from out here. And I was laying there in bed there, and I was able to get up in a wheelchair. My leg was still in a cast, and I was still in a wheelchair, but I was able to get in a wheelchair. And they had got me out of my bed, and I was in the wheelchair there, and I had this on here, and I think I still had a little traction up in here and stuff. And this, and I didn't know my congressman then. Mm-hmm. And this man and woman come in there that I never met, and an officer was with him. And that was unusual, for an officer to come in there. And he said, and he wanted to know, the officer wanted to know if I was Specialist Muntz, and I said, yeah. And he said, this is Congressman Paul Finley from Illinois. And I said, well, it is, And yeah, and the weird part about it, the officer said he'd like to talk to you, and Paul told the officer to leave. I couldn't believe that. And the officer did. And so Paul and I call him Paul now because we've become real good friends. He said, I'm here to study, and I'd like to meet some of the other guys if you know anybody from Illinois. And I said, I know a couple of guys from Illinois. There's one in the ward down below me, and I knew another guy too. And I said, I can take you down there. He said, yeah, I want to meet him. And I said, I don't know how many more is here, but I do know those two guys are here. And he said, I want you to show me around. So he said, don't hold nothing back. I want to see what's going on. And so I took him to the basket ward. The basket ward is guys that no arms, no legs, no paralyzed. We call it the basket ward. I took him all the way around. And he even wanted to go eat lunch where we ate lunch.
Wow.
So you ate lunch up in your bed until you got to where you get in the wheelchair, and then you had to go down to the big main mess hall. He went down there and ate with 400 or 500 other guys. And he got a rude awakening. And that was the beginning. They got some others to come out there, and then not too far after that, the war started ending, you know. So.
Did they do anything to improve? You think that what that did good was bringing attention to the congressman in the war? And
I think it was that. I don't think he realized that the guys was getting hurt like they were. I really don't. He called me even after we was married and stuff a time or two. He just didn't realize that guys was getting wounded that bad. You know, I don't think he did. He didn't see the suffering, and I showed him. You know, but and his wife, I don't think she didn't want to go into a couple rooms. She couldn't take it. You know, but he did. So we become pretty good friends. You know, but yeah, I think every congressman should go. No matter which war it is, every one of them should go out to the Walter Reed or whatever, you know, and see for themselves.
Yeah.
That it's just not the dead people, it's the wounded people.
Yeah.
Got to spend the rest of their life. And a guy that's got no arms, no legs, you know, blind and stuff. Spend the rest of their life. It's got a rough life, you know. I was lucky. But some of the guys wasn't.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you don't have to apologize to me.
I just get a little bit upset.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I know wars sometimes can't be helped, but it's, you know, I just don't think that one was well thought out.
Yeah.
Could have been done different. And then they end up losing it anyway. It didn't make sense, you know.
Yeah.
If you're going to fight a war, fight it to win it and be done with it, you know. Don't let it drag out.
I never understood why they didn't have the same approach that they did in World War II, where you had once you took the land, once you took the ground, you kept it and you kept moving forward. And you just had a constant line moving and stuff instead of this cat and mouse
They
thing.
didn't do it. There was no sense to sending patrols out in them jungles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If they're going to mine it and they're out in the jungle, just bomb them, leave them alone. Don't send them patrols out there or send patrols out there. Some of them guys were sent out there as bait, you know, to be fired on, to find the enemy. That was stupid, you know. But, oh, well. And they still do it today in Afghanistan. They were still doing it over there. If you read or listen to it, I might have been over there, but if you just listen to it, I could tell that that's what they're doing to some of them guys over there, you know. Or was. I don't know. It's crazy. If you're going to fight a war, fight it, be done with it.
Yeah.
And most Americans will be like that. That, you know, it wouldn't hurt quite so bad. I never cried this much in my life.
Wow.
I didn't think I'd get upset. I really didn't. I haven't been upset like this for a long time.
Well,
I'd get myself upset. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? Oh.
Well, I appreciate you being honest and, I mean, and telling people how it really is and how it was and everything. A lot of times the interviews that I sit down with veterans, they've come through something unscathed or, what have you. Your story is very powerful, and I think it's important that I'm glad you agreed to do this because I think what you have to say is something that doesn't get said enough, really.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of guys like me that think the same thing, and just got to have the opportunity to say something,
yeah.
But I think if a congressman or a president can send somebody to war, he ought to have enough. He ought to be made to go to where the injured are. It's one thing to go put a reef on a grave or whatever, but it's another thing to go in where they're and not be. Go where the guys are at. Don't go where the officers going to show you what they want to show you, and that happens a lot,
Yeah.
But that's one thing I really admired about Congressman Finley. He wanted to do it on his own, and he did.
Mm-hmm.
And that officer, I think that officer was going to take him around, and I don't think he surprised him. I could just tell by the way it surprised him, that
He didn't want an official
he didn't
tour.
want him
He
around,
wanted
and
that's good for him.
they never come back and talk to me. So I guess I done a good. They never did say anything that I done anything wrong or anything. But I figured they would, but they didn't. But yeah.
When the other congressmen came back, did they get a similar tour?
I don't know. I really never seen any other congressmen, but I was told there was some come back. Let's put it this way. I was just told that there was some come back.
Yeah.
I never did see one. Most of the people that come out there was I can't say enough for the Salvation Army, the Red Cross. Those two out there was really good. There's a lot of church people out there come in and bring us cake and books and just they come in and ask you if you need anything and just all kinds of stuff. There was some of them would come in there. Do some singing and stuff like that, off and on. But Salvation Army and Red Cross, they was there the whole time, pretty much, And those people out there during the Vietnam War, it was different out there. They kind of knew the war was going on, When I come back here, it was a little different.
Mm-hmm.
People treated you a little.
How were you treated when you got back?
I was treated all right. I didn't have. I got good neighbors and stuff. It's just that I don't think a lot of people. There's some people I don't think just understood what was really happening. You always got that in everybody, but the majority of my friends and neighbors and everything. Of course, a lot of my guys was buddies. They'd been over there and stuff, and we always swapped stories and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Some of them is dead now, and losing them all the time.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any more questions for you. I think I've taken enough of your time.
Okay. Well, nice meeting you, and I hope you cut some of this out.
I can do whatever you like.
Yeah.
It's your story. So
if you think some of these cut it out.
Okay. Anyway, I want to thank you for letting me come into your home tonight and talk to you. I didn't mean.
I wish I could see you. I can see you move there a little bit, but I can't see your face or anything like that. So
yeah, well, that's all right. I've been sweating all day long. You look at me anyway.
Yeah, I imagine. I stuck my head out a while ago, or just when you guys come.
So
it's
humid.
hot.
It is so humid out there.
And I'm used to kind of being out in it, but after this surgery this week, man, I'm getting soft. That's why I got an ice pack on this.
talking about that
really been
today.
hurting quite a bit, but.
He'll give you